So yesterday we started writing this calculator class and talking about how to write methods. And so we wrote the calculator class over here. We wrote this other class called writing methods, and that uses a calculator object that we're defining over here. Okay. So let's just kind of review what we talked about. And basically what we can do is we can look at these two methods and kind of review how we write methods. So methods are normally public. So we'll normally have the word public to start this thing out and have a return type. So over here, the equals method has a return type of double. The number one method has a return type of void. So void tells us it doesn't return anything. Okay. So in other words, another way to think about this is that when you see a void method, the void method just changes something about our object, but doesn't give us anything back, okay? And so in this case, the thing that's changing is value. That's the only thing that a calculator keeps track of right now, okay? And if you think about it, like when we compared that to like clean your room yesterday, okay? So a procedure like clean your room returns nothing, right? It just changes the way that your room looks, but you're not like delivering something back to your mom when she tells you to clean your room, okay? So that's kind of the idea there. All right. When we see a type as the return, so like double over in the equals example, that tells us it has to return something of the given type. So let me just give you a kind of a silly example, okay? Kendrick, will you ask me please what my favorite color is?
What's your favorite color?
Bananas. Okay, so the point of that example, right, it's a little bit silly, but the point is that like when you ask a question, you have some idea of the type of answer you're going to get back, right? And so when we say equals over here, it's like we're saying, hey, my calc, what do you equal right now, right? It's like asking a question. And we have some expectation of the type of answer we should get back. And that type is defined right here, right? So I can't do like what I just did, right? I can't say return something that's of a wrong type, okay? So I can't go here and say return bananas, because that's a string, and this says that I'm going to return a double. So I can't do that. This, whatever I return here has to be something that is a double, okay? I could say return 6.0, right? But then that doesn't really make sense because in the calculator, I want to know what the value is. So that's why we put value there, okay? So back to the notes here. Type tells us it has to return something of the type given, right? So that we're not like giving weird answers, okay? Methods have a meaningful name, so this one we know that's what the calculator equals. This one is like hitting the number one button. So maybe that would have been a better name for that, to say number one button, number two button, number three button, number four button, but we just shortened it to number one because we're lazy, okay? The parentheses are followed by French braces. Okay, so I'm sorry, the name is followed by parentheses, right? We always have parentheses after the name of our method when we define it. Then we have French braces, okay? And the instructions for the method go inside the French braces. So in this case, all we're saying is value equals value times 10 plus 1, okay? Down here it's times 10 plus 2. Down here it's times 10 plus 3. And what we're going to learn today is that we can put something inside of these parentheses, but I just want you to kind of understand the idea here that like if we did have, for example, like a clean your room method, right? We would want the instructions to go inside of those parentheses, and there might be more than one instruction for that, and we want them to go in order, right? So it's like make your bed, pick up all the clothes, sweep the floor, organize your dresser, right? Put the clean clothes away, okay? Whatever goes into clean your room would go inside of those sets of brackets, all right? Okay, so hopefully that's making sense. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to figure out that we can make this a lot more efficient. Okay? How many of you finished this out and you have number 1 through number 9 and number 0? Okay, good. Today we're going to turn that into just one method. So what I want to do is I want you to highlight all of these methods, right? And then you're going to hold down the control key on your keyboard and hit the slash to comment all of that out. All right. And what we want to do is we want to look at this and say like, well, value equals value times 10 plus 1, value equals times 10 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. Man, it really would be nice if we could just use a variable, right? And set that variable to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 0, right? And just use that. And so that's the idea of what's called a parameter. All right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to add on a different method that's going to replace all these other ones. Okay? So underneath where we have the equals button, the equals method here, we're going to go public void, and I'm just going to call the method number button. Okay? In number button then, okay, we're going to add what's called a parameter. Yeah. Control slash. Yeah. We're going to add what's called a parameter. So a parameter goes inside of these parentheses, and a parameter is something that I can set from outside of the class and use inside of this method. All right? So all of the number buttons are integer numbers, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0. So I'm going to go int number. And then inside of the number button method, I'm going to use number. I'm going to go value equals value times 10, just like we did for all the other ones. But now I'm going to go number plus number. Instead of plus 1, plus 2, it's going to be plus number. So now that we've changed what we have over here in calculator, this over here when I'm using calculator, I'll have to change that as well. All right, so I'm just going to kind of shorten that up a little bit so we can see what's going on. And what should happen is over here, now it's saying like you can't do mycalc.number3 because there's no number 3 method over here. Okay, so what we want to do is instead of doing number 3, we're going to go number button and do what we call send it the number 3. Okay, or pass it the number 3. All right. And so we're going to do that for each of these. We're going to go number button. And guys, you don't have to put these extra spaces in here. Okay? I do that because I want it to be more readable for you, but you can just do it like that, number button 5. Okay? I like having the extra spaces because it just makes it more readable. Okay? Over on this side, 3 is called an argument. All right. So when we pass a value, okay, that value is called an argument. And the way this works, I don't know if you guys have already kind of figured out the way this works, but this is saying we're going to take mycalc, we're going to do the number button method, and we're going to pass 3. So 3 is setting what number is. Okay? So it's like taking 3 and passing it over to number, and then this is going to take value equals value times 10 plus whatever number is, so plus 3. This time it's going to be 1. Value equals value times 10 plus 1. Right? And then this time it's 5. Does that make sense? Yeah, Joe. All right. Over on this side, okay, number, int number is called a parameter. So it's kind of weird we call them different things in different locations, but when we're defining a method, if we want a variable that we can set from over here, we call it a parameter. And when we're giving the value or passing the value to the parameter, we call it an argument. Okay? So that's what's going on there. I'm going to add in some extra notes down here. Hopefully. Okay. So we have the option of adding parameter variables inside the parentheses. of a method. Okay. Parameter values are set outside of the class by passing arguments to the parameters, or passing an argument. I'll say an argument to the parameter. All right. So just like return types have to match, parameter types have to match as well. Okay. Bless you. The argument type must match the parameter type. And I'm going to add a line in between here, guys. So kind of look up here so you can see where I'm adding this. Okay. Parameters have a type and a name. Okay. So like we did over here, the parameter is int number. Okay. Type and name. Parameter values are set outside of the class. So like this 3 is setting the number. Okay. And it's where we call that passing an argument to the parameter. The argument type, so if I have 3 over here, that's an int, so that's okay. Okay, I can't do 3.0 over here because 3.0 is a double, number is an int. So I can't do that, okay? And obviously then I can't do something like 3 spelled out as a string, because again, that's not the right type. I can't send a string to an int. The computer doesn't know how to do that. Okay, so that has to match. And then the parameter can be used inside the method. So, guys, we're going to add on to the calculator a little bit more now. So hopefully, so right now what we've done is we've basically taken our calculator, and let's look at what we have over here. Okay. We have a calculator that has a value, so we can keep track of this number right here. We have this one method called number button that handles all 10 number buttons, right? I can pass it one of those things and it'll do any one of those things, okay? What other buttons should we have? Or what other methods, I guess, should we have to represent buttons? Yeah, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, right? So let's go ahead and add one of those. But if you think about it, like if I do 315 plus 748, right? I need to, when I hit equals, it's going to do the operation, right? So I need to keep track of which one of these things I pressed. Does that make sense for everybody? Okay. So how do I make my calculator keep track of another thing? So right now it's keeping track of a value. Make another thingy, right? We make another variable, right? So over here in calculator, we're going to make another variable called private. I'm going to use char this time, okay? Char operation. Okay? So char is a single character, all right? And the operation is going to be either a plus sign, a minus sign, a times sign, or a divide sign, okay? So let's go ahead down here and let's add in methods for setting that operation, okay? So we're going to go public void plus button, all right? And then inside of there, we're going to say operation equals, and then this is an apostrophe plus sign, apostrophe, semicolon, okay? So it's not a quotation mark, it's an apostrophe, like a single quote, right? So this is how we make a char in the Java language. Listen, chars can only be a single character. So if I put like a space in there, that won't work, because now I have two characters inside those parentheses. No, not parentheses, apostrophes, and that won't work. So it can just be one single character. Okay, so that's your plus button method. I want you guys to write your minus button, times button, and divide button. It looks like most of you got this figured out. You guys pretty much went through, and I don't know if you used copy paste, but hopefully you did. Okay, so then the plus button. So first of all, let me talk about this. You can't have two methods with the same name and the same parameters. So if we have an empty parameter list here, is what we call what's inside the parentheses. Okay, if I have an empty parameter list, I can't have two different plus button methods that have the same name and don't have different parameters. So we don't want that. We're going to change this to minus button anyway. Okay, and then times button, and then divide button or division button. I don't really care what you call it. Okay, and then we'd want to go ahead and change these. But guys, listen. Okay, this is another situation where we have four methods that do something very similar to each other, right? And so it would be better if we could replace those four methods with one method and a parameter. Does that make sense to you? Just like we did with the number button, we want to be able to do like an operation button and then have a parameter. So that's what I want you to try to do now. Okay? Comment these four methods out and write one method similar to number button that has a parameter that allows us to set the operation. Yep. All right, so let's look at the answer here. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and comment this out again. So like control / comments all that stuff out. And then we're going to basically like redo this so that we can just say operation button and use a parameter. So public void operation button. Inside of here, each of these things that I want to replace with a variable, each of these things is a char, right? So the char could be a plus or a minus or a times or a divide. Char, I'm just going to call it op right there. Okay, so char op. Okay, and then inside of here, what I want to do is I want to go operation equals op. Okay. And so what that allows me to do is it allows me to go over to my writing methods class over here where I'm making my calculator. And eventually what we want to be able to do is say like, I want to know what 315 plus 784 is or whatever we talked about before. So now what I can do is I can say my calc over here dot operation button. And then I'm going to give it or pass it that plus sign. So now it knows the operation should be plus. Okay. Any questions about how this operation button call over here in line 48 sets the operation to plus? Okay, so I'm going to show you guys just one more thing. We're really pretty much done, but you could have kind of gotten to a situation. Gosh, why is that happening? You could have gotten into a situation over here, all right, where we're making our operation button, where you called this operation. Okay, now here's what I want you to notice before I do that. Okay, over here, operation right here is colored blue, okay, and it knows that we're talking about operation up here. Does that make sense? So I kind of purposely called this op over here so that the computer wouldn't get confused about like which operation I'm talking about. All right, or which variable I'm talking about, I should say. If I call this operation Now it gets confused, okay? Now nothing's colored in blue, all right? And so there's a way to force this to recognize that we're talking about the operation variable that's up here, and that's by using the word this in front of it, okay? So if we do this dot operation, it forces it to know that we're talking about the calculator's operation should equal the parameter operation that we're using right there, okay? So I kind of wanted to not do that and just leave this as op, right? But some of you may have called this thing operation here, and so I wanted you to at least see that you can get around using the same variable name, right? But that's kind of a more advanced understanding of kind of object-oriented programming. So I'm going to leave it like this, but at least now you've seen it one time. Okay?